Hey, squad! I'm very tired, and I'm gonna structure this video like a tour of an abandoned mine shaft. We'll start with the basics, like, hey, that mining cart full of fossilized denim and ammonium nitrate is on fire. That's one end of the spectrum. Commentary on more or less observable phenomena. As the video goes on, my criticisms are gonna get more and more metaphysical. Like, is it just me, or are the vibes just, like, rancid in here?
Mr. Jenkins, I'm ready for my close-up. Or, on the topic of cinematography.
On rewatch, I was struck by how much of the R-Flag pilot revolves around a group of guys just sitting around talking. And this is something I've come to admire about Jenkins & Co. Their faith in the, inherent entertainment value of communication. As a storyteller, I often feel a lot of pressure to show, not tell. I've internalized the lesson that the narrative style commonly known as talking heads is cheap and boring, that dialogue is a crutch, actions speak louder than words and all that. Our Flag Means Death reassured me that telling can be its own kind of showing. Just because the characters are speaking honestly with each other about their hopes and fears doesn't make a scene flat by default. There's still much to be gleaned from where and how these conversations take place, the way these characters fit together, and which topics are left off the table. I didn't feel spoon-fed by this show's dialogue. I felt trusted. A huge cast and a tight-angle set more or less forced the production crew to take a small-scale, dialogue-heavy, close-up and mid-shot focused approach to our Flag. These structural limitations also put a lot of trust on the audience. Jenkins had to hope we'd all stick around in the absence of jangling keys. That trust translates as respect for me as a viewer, as well as a respect for, communication as a practice, maybe? It's like the show itself takes Steed's words to heart. All the crew want is action, action, action.
Weeks we've been out here with nothing to show for it. I should have 20 kills by now.
But Steed preaches the value of civil conversation and reflection.
Remember the rhyme? If someone returns from the raid mentally devastated, we talk it through as a crew. Because that's what we do here on The Revenge.
The pirate genre demands action, 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 as do the proposed rules of modern cinema, for that matter. But whether by choice or limitation, dialogue forms our Flag's foundation.
We can't blow things up on this show as much as other shows blow things up. We have to kind of pick our shots. So, but that's the fun of it, where it's like the story of the show is in the workplace of it and in the small moments of it. And those are the things in anything that I love to see. But it's the meat of this show. And I think it's what makes it different from other people doing things in this genre.
To this end, our Flag took on the visage of an adapted stage play. The few recurring sets, as seen through medium shots and medium close-ups, create an atmosphere of what I can only call campy intimacy.
As total as my theatrical knowledge may be, I did forget the most important thing.
But to be interesting.
Company. We are a company.
The world's oceans are no wider than the gap between the stage apron and backstage. Characters from across the globe bump into each other like old college friends at a small-town grocery store. The moment Ed pushes Lucius off the Revenge, I knew Lucius wasn't dead. He'd just fallen off the stage, It was all very low stakes and cozy.
So you would really be dead?
No, it's all make-believe. Like a play.
Exactly. Just like a play.
The times I did break from that theater mindset felt deliberate on the part of the creators. I love how those flashback snapshots slapped me out of the story for a second. Like the character on screen, I became momentarily disoriented, displaced from my present reality. With a comfortable stage play as a baseline, the moments when the camera did go for a cutaway or an extreme close-up or an overhead shot hit harder for their rarity. Then I sat down with my friend Riz for the finale, and she was like, "Hey, what's up with all these wide shots?" Zooming out. This small but significant stylistic shift establishes itself within the first 20 seconds of Season 2 and maintains a quiet but steady presence thereafter. Our Flag's budget went down, not up, and oddly enough that may be a part of the reason why. The crew moved the production from LA to New Zealand to keep costs down, and I can understand why Jenkins would want to take advantage of New Zealand's magical landscapes. Also, a sizable grant from the New Zealand Tourism Board would have created some amount of pressure to promote the area as a tourist destination.
You of all people know my passion for New Zealand and its iconic landscapes and destinations. I mean, from Moiraki Boulders to Hooker Falls, from the Tongariro crossings to Hot Water Beach, from Wellington's cable car thing all the way to the bungee tower. The list goes on, Jackie.
Middle and middle close-up shots still make up the bulk of our flag's visual language, for sure. But epic wide shots of beaches and cliffs and valleys became part of its vernacular. This new ability to pull back the camera made our flag's world feel bigger, more epic, more real, and yes, less and less like a community theater production. The gravy basket didn't feel like a pile of plastic rocks on a stage with a boat downstage and Ed's crew hidden behind a curtain.
The convenience of having all this spectacular natural locations allows us to make a small show into a big show.
From In-Depth Cine. In life, our proximity to a person defines our emotional relationship to them. Therefore, the tighter we frame a shot on a character, the more intimate it feels, while wider compositions feel more emotionally neutral and observational. For a while, the drama of this shift excited me. I wanted to see what this wider world had to offer. But as the small stylistic changes piled up, the show started to feel different, I guess. Less cozy, more detached. In my cynicism, the wider frame became a window into the showrunner's priorities. To quote my friend Mel, it's like the camera fell out of love with the characters.
Aye. The death of Whimsy. Or, you ruined my theme soup.
He's ruining the soup! And nobody's noticing it!
In Our Flag Means Death, piracy functions like toxic masculinity. Steed suffered awful abuse at the hands of his father and schoolmates for his more feminine attributes. His love of flowers, his affinity for fine things, his distaste for violence. The men in Steed's life deride him as a plumper, pathetic, soft, weak, and a crier. Steed often acts out less for his own sake and more to spite the ghosts of his past.
You crash the boat, you lose the hostages, it's all so
pathetic. Lily-livered little rich boy. And that's all you'll ever be, stink bonnet. I am adequate.
Sorry?
I said let's get our damned men back.
When the crew votes to mutiny, Steed must meet their definition of real pirates.
I gather some of you feel as though we're not real pirates. Well, here's the deal, buccos. We have our eyes on a ship. A big one.
The crew prepare for their first act of true piracy, and Steed flashes back to the moment his father butchered a duck. Here, Steed's father ties masculinity, man's work, directly to the act of killing, an act which Steed reviles.
This is what a man's work looks like.
Thousands of years later.
Pathetic. 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 Pathetic.
Badminton's subsequent demise secures Steed the loyalty of his pirate crew, who were otherwise suspicious of Steed's softness.
What is the overall impression?
That you're weak, soft-bellied, yellow,
I see.
craven, ill-equipped to lead men.
Understood.
At the end of the pilot, as Steed affirms his commitment to his new life of piracy and, reflects on his first kill, we hear this excerpt from Pinocchio.
His wish had come true. At long last, he'd become a real boy.
From Maya Salam at the New York Times. So what does toxic masculinity or traditional masculinity ideology mean? Researchers have defined it in part as a set of behaviors and beliefs that include the following: suppressing emotions or masking distress, maintaining an appearance of hardness, violence as an indicator of power, think tough guy behavior. In other words, toxic masculinity is what can come of teaching boys that they can't express emotion openly, that they have to be tough all the time, that anything other than that makes them feminine or weak.
Traditionally, piracy is a culture of abuse. Floggings, keel haulings. And my thought is, why? And also, what if it weren't like that?
As per the popular mythos, real pirates are not gentle or kind.
That's a real pirate! Not like one of these store-bought types.
Ed and Jack's violent, repressed, authoritarian approach is what defines them as real men. Likewise, Steed can only secure his place as captain once he's proven his capacity for violence. When Ed decides to go back for Steed and the crew, a selfless act which bears Ed's sentimental underbelly, Jack reels.
What do you need your friend? What kind of pirate has a friend? We're all just at various stages of fucking each other over!
Steed craves the legitimacy of piracy as an emblem of maleness, but for Ed, piracy is just another costume, and he's drowning in this role as the mythical alpha male.
God. This is what they think I look like. Fucking Viking vampire clown with... Look at that. There's 1, 2, 9 guns all over him. 9 guns?
It's too...
I have 1 gun and 1 knife. It's fucking hard sometimes, you know. You ever feel trapped? Like you're just treading water, waiting to drown?
Yes.
It's not gender that traps these characters, I'd argue, but a society which ostracizes anyone who refuses to perform gender to its toxic standards. Take Jim. Jim wields stereotypical masculine traits as a disguise. It's poignant that Jim must trade their ability to speak to pass as male.
Me and Jim, we don't do this because we like it. We do it because we don't have any other choice.
As the show goes on, we see the crew start to go, hey, maybe I'm safe to be my real self here. Maybe you can shave your beard, take your tea with 7 sugars, collect fancy clothes, and still be a man. Maybe you can go by a name like Jim and, not be a man or a woman. Maybe acceptance doesn't have to come at the expense of your own unique relationship with gender. Maybe the crew gets to decide what it means to be a real pirate.
Crew of Revenge, you are not to engage. You are simply here to observe how real pirates function in the real world.
We are also real pirates in the real world, so...
Steed oscillates back and forth between a desire to prove his worth to society, to be celebrated by popular culture, and the desire to spurn society at large and carve out a safe space where he can be kind, gentle.
Instead of killing with weapons, he kills with kindness.
Oh, right, so you're the gentleman pirate then?
Well sussed.
Yeah.
Polite menace. That'll be my brand. Every legendary pirate needs one.
Note the word legendary. Here's where we enter the real soup zone, okay? You've got this lovely base broth full of gender, and then on top of that you add the show's complicated relationship with myths and legends and fiction at large. In the same way Steed seeks to become a pirate, Steed seeks to become a fictional character. He recruits Lucius to record his every move with a grandiose flourish.
June the 3rd. An excellent day. Raided a commercial vessel after overwhelming the hardy crew. We claimed a prize of lush vegetation in conquest. Here's an illustration for reference. They'll never forget the eccentric pirate Bonnet and his savage, insane, vengeful pirate horde. See, he's a pirate, a real proper pirate.
A proper pirate.
It wasn't like Steed became a pirate captain out of admiration for real pirates. He was spurred on by tales of pirate legends like Captain Kidd and Blackbeard. In Discomfort in a Married State, Steed reveals he's read all the books in his study many times. He's only brought along his favorites out to sea. So when he shows Ed an embellished copy of Howard Pyle's Book of Pirates, we know that's one of Steed's most cherished books. With Blackbeard, it is different, Howard Pyle writes. For in him we have a real ranting, raging, roaring pirate, per se. One who really did bury treasure, who made more than one captain walk the plank, and who committed more pirate murders than he could number on the fingers of both hands. One who fills, and will continue to fill, the space in which he has been assigned for generations, and who may be depended upon to hold his place in the confidence of others for generations to come.
Wait. So you're saying Blackbeard's head is made of smoke?
When he needs it to be.
So there's the myth of piracy as a dangerous fairy tale world of adventure, and the myth of piracy as the essence of manhood, and the myth of manhood itself as a fixed, one-size-fits-all social category. And there are myths like sea monsters, the kraken, unicorns, mermaids, calypso, curses and hexes and rituals, evil or benign. Sometimes these myths are touted as science and employed to rationalize exclusion, a la racism and sexism.
All I know is women are bad luck on ships. Yeah. Historically.
That's a myth.
Well, no, actually, science. Because women have crystals in their body, and the crystals attract demons, and the demons attract misfortune. You know, the French call it.
And sometimes myths provide comfort and security. Salt circles and ship figureheads promise protection. Ed uses the Kraken to shield himself from the reality of his childhood trauma. Myths invite celebration and paranoia. They bring people together and push them apart. And when you widen the definition of myth to like fables, to fiction, the soup gets spicy as hell. After all, how much of the crew's decision not to mutiny came down to Steed's capacity for violence versus his skill as a storyteller?
If we kill him, we'll never know what happens to that wooden doll who wants to become a real boy.
When half the crew are held hostage by Ed, we see them turn back to Pinocchio for this tiny slice of respite.
I can't stop crying. He shot Izzy.
Want to hear the story of the wooden boy?
Izzy, not ready to face Ed, creates a story where a shark took his leg.
That seems healthy. Using a bit of fiction to help cover up your trauma.
Ed uses fiction to process his breakup.
Why are you hanging on?
No, it's not about me. It's someone else holding on.
Yeah.
Someone entirely fictional.
And this fictional character, he's having a hard time.
And I love this soupy duality, which allows fiction to exist as both a repressive force and a refuge. Do the stories these characters tell themselves illuminate or distort reality? Do the archetypical roles they assign themselves help or hinder their development as people? And that's not even to mention the meta-narrative here, where you zoom out and like, oh shit, Steed did become a fictional character. One of the legends from his books. He's not, I mean, surprise! None of these people are real. They're based on real people, but only so far as the cast of Hamilton are based on real people.
You have no control. Who lives, who dies, who tells your story?
It's super contradictory because on one hand, our flag seeks to celebrate an unseen history. David Jenkins says, I think a lot of pirate history is suspect. I think a lot of it is whitewashed. There's a lot skipped over. A lot of it is pretty straightwashed, too. I think it was a weirder, more colorful, more queer experience than what we get when we look at a traditional pirate movie or stories that we're used to. And by the same token, our flag woobifies or distorts history. Back to Jenkins, you wouldn't want to meet the real Blackbeard. The real Blackbeard was a rapist who handed women over to his crew. The real Stede Bonnet was a slave owner. When we tell these stories, we have to be clear with what we're doing because all of these people were despicable, which of course presents an ethical quandary. A diverse cast and crew softens the blow for me, but I do get why our flag's premise would rub someone the wrong way. In any case, maybe now you get what I mean by soup. There's this huge hodgepodge of overlapping metaphors and social commentary at play here, all under the wider umbrella of fiction. Societal roles, character archetypes, maritime folklore, embellished history, fairy tales, mermaids who massage you to death, and mermaids who pluck you from a watery grave.
I'm not a fucking mermaid.
All right.
Stories that ruin you and stories that sustain you. And my god, how many times are we gonna call back to noses and Pinocchio? For a long time, these elements all came together for me to create a deliciously rich theme soup. And then they killed the fucking unicorn. Horses. Are they real?
Which is your favorite of all the horses?
Halifax. Very pretty and very fast.
Yes, he's wonderful.
I like Arthur. He has kind eyes.
More to the point, ship figureheads represent the spirit of a vessel. More superstitious mariners believe a ship's figurehead protects the crew, which adds some context to this exchange.
Well, mythical creature, anything to say for yourself? Fuck you!
And this one.
It's done! Maybe next time he'll think twice about not doing his fucking
Before he loses his leg, Izzy doesn't seem to connect with anyone besides Ed. His one hobby in life is being pissed off. He doesn't even express any personal desires outside of, like, I want you to perform a certain role. If you don't perform that role to my satisfaction, I will leave or I will kill you.
Back to work! Useless fucking fuckers! Get back to work now, all of you. Your lot days of lying around doing fuck all, it's through. You're all getting specific duties. Work hard Keep a spring in your step. Work faster. He wants no trace of Steed's old dross. It is your job to follow my fucking orders.
So, what is Izzy's job?
Why'd you even do it in the first place?
Because it's my job to make sure that Edward is content.
Izzy's job, as Izzy describes it, is to manage Edward's erratic moods, and thus assuage and protect Ed's crew.
For years I've followed your every whim. I've managed your increasingly erratic moods. I've massaged this crew when they were worried about your judgment.
Sounds stressful, Izzy.
It is. But I did all that because I was honored to work for the legendary Blackbeard.
When Ed seems more concerned with cloud shapes and silly trinkets than their impending demise, Izzy believes it's his job to steer Ed back into seriousness.
So, Edward...
He's got all sorts of knickknacks and trinkets.
Edward,
this guy's fucking fascinating.
Edward, focus. We need a plan.
I'm focusing on all
Edward,
of this
we
brilliant
really need
stuff.
a plan.
Crazy little trinkets.
A plan.
Oh, yes, we're going to a fucking plan.
It's his job to save Ed from himself.
You're my captain, and I was never going to stand by and let you destroy yourself for that swat.
In Izzy's mind, he fails his one job. He fails to anticipate the depth of Ed's love for Steed. He fails to nurture Ed's softer side. He fails to protect Ed from Ed. Like the figurehead, he's not done his fucking job, and thus deserves to get his leg sawed off as punishment. To be clear, if he hadn't shot Ed, Ed would have set the ship on fire. If he hadn't kept Ed's body on board, Steed would have never plucked him from the gravy basket. But Izzy can't see his own worth past his narrow definition of success. The majority of ship figureheads are women, but Izzy addresses the unicorn as he. Maybe next time he'll think twice about not doing his fucking job.
What does it mean to project, and how do you stop doing it?
According to the Royal Museum's Greenwich, figureheads were often lovingly cared for by the crew. The superstitions of seamen meant that the figurehead held great significance to those on board, and they would go to great lengths to protect it. They tied a hammock across the eyes of the figurehead on the Royal George so it wouldn't have to see a humiliating retreat, Grace Turney recounts. And when the figurehead on the Brunswick had its hat blown off, the captain donated his own as a substitute. When the crew come together and give Izzy a mobility device carved from the ship figurehead, that's already such a loaded symbolic gesture. Before you account for the note, which reads, "For the new unicorn." Moments ago, Izzy asks,
"And you, what's your excuse? I mean, what even are you?"
And the crew answers, "Our unicorn, our figurehead, our beloved protector, the indomitable spirit of this crew personified." With this role, the crew tells Izzy, "We see you as powerful. We still admire and respect you. We are here for you, as you are here for us, and we're ready to help you move forward." Both literally and figuratively. Izzy appointed himself the arbiter of another man's mental health, and to that end, he was always doomed to fail. In a perfect world, maybe Izzy would come to realize he doesn't need a designated role to earn his keep on the ship. But this new dynamic, where Izzy protects the crew and the crew protect Izzy, feels so much less like servitude than mutual support. And we can see the way this new arrangement allows Izzy the freedom to explore life outside of work for once. He even gets a hobby. Holy shit, this man can whittle. In Fun and Games, Izzy looks in the mirror and sees nothing. A waste of space. What even are you? He asks himself. Then in Calypso's birthday, Izzy looks in the mirror and sees possibility. Someone who not only deserves to exist, but to celebrate their truth. Con O'Neill recounts, "When Kristen, Nairn, and I shot the scene where I discovered wee John doing his makeup. There was one take of the scene where we ended up looking in the mirror together, and I heard myself say, 'Make me pretty.' And as gentle as that sounds, it had a profound effect on me, because I suddenly realized that that part in Izzy that had never been announced before was wanting to announce itself. I think it's probably the first time Izzy has ever said the word pretty, and it was about himself. I mean, how lovely is that? In her brilliantly poignant article, Our Flag Means Death, It Was Supposed to Be Kind, Verity Holloway writes, "By mid-season, Izzy's healing arc culminates in a gorgeous drag rendition of La Vie en Rose, in which Izzy changes the French lyrics from 'I live for him' to 'I live for you.' The collective, the crew, he's found a life outside of Blackbeard." In episode 8, the finale, Izzy proudly says, "Piracy is about belonging to something when the world has told you you're nothing." He's still drinking hard, but he's smiling, defiant. He's loved and accepted. Then they kill him.
Don't tell me you're still upset about the unicorn.
I don't think you should have killed it.
Oh, really? Why is that?
What purpose did you serve by killing it?
We were...
End of Act 2, Supreme Ordeal.
That's what you do.
In the wake of the finale, I've often asked myself, in a story about myths, what would make me want to kill the unicorn? And my answer always circles back to some variation of, I would kill the unicorn to signal the death of whimsy. Up till this point, our flag has operated within the framework of fantastical make-believe, wherein people can turn into birds and death is reserved for no good nutdicks. So no one would expect me to pull out a Glock and shoot the unicorn in the gut.
He saw a unicorn with 5 horns right in front of him. And the pentacorn spoke thus. Hello, Bo. I've been looking for you for quite a long time.
Izzy's death is a real shock to the system, and I would want to use that shock to my advantage, to really drive home the loss of this kinder, more magical world. Except Izzy's death doesn't signal the death of whimsy. The crew's escape from the British comes at a heavy cost, sure, but they do live to sail another day. The story ends with Spanish Jackie and the crew of the Revenge already en route to their next adventure. Pete and Lucius get their fairy tale union, and Jim calls out, "Beware of the new Revenge, dogs." The good times, the magical mishaps, aren't over. They're simply a change. So Izzy's death signaled a change of the guard, right? The death of the old ways? Well, by the time of his death, Izzy was no longer a man among Muppets, but a spokesperson for the show's thesis.
To love the sea as she must be loved requires change.
Buttons people don't change. Not in the birds or otherwise.
Season 2 revolves around change. To find themselves, to repair their relationships, the crew must embrace transformation. Times will change. People will change. Loved ones will move or pass away. When I look at our flag through a Vaseline-covered lens, I can see Izzy's death as an extension of that general premise. But I mean, does it really celebrate change? To kill the guy who metamorphosed from a suicidal recluse to a drag singer? Out of everyone, why kill the unicorn? If not for some grand thematic statement, maybe because Izzy has become too helpful, I guess. We're told Izzy taught Ed everything he knows. Steed even suggests Izzy made Ed the captain he is today. Izzy offers Steed advice about the crew, advice about Ed. He even teaches Steed how to fight.
Izzy, did you see that? I did a punch.
Izzy's presence commands respect from the most formidable figures. If you tilt your head to one side and smack yourself with a tennis racket, you can kinda see why David Jenkins would call Izzy a mentor figure. And yeah, we all know what happens to mentor figures.
Just let me tell you this life-altering thing, and then I'll die. Cool?
I mean, sure, but is there maybe a way to have you not die?
Probably not. It wouldn't have as much significance if I lived.
No, yeah, I get that, but I don't want you to die.
If I may.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Listen closely. Oh.
Jenkins told Vanity Fair, "There's this trope that I like with mentor stories, where the mentor dies in the second act. Our protagonist outlives the mentor, and then they have to go on. We felt like Izzy's story had reached its conclusion, where we put him through enough." Verity Holloway retorts, "Izzy has been through enough, so he has to be shot like an injured horse?" Canonically, Israel Hands was the sole survivor. Why the decision to subvert that when the other pirates sail off into the sunset together? I want to stress that storytellers are not therapists, and I don't believe Jenkins held any moral obligation to keep Izzy alive. It does feel kinda shitty, though, to suggest that death was the natural next step for Izzy, a disabled survivor of attempted suicide, when, from my perspective, he'd only just figured out how to live.
Yeah, that's suicide.
It's only suicide if we die.
Our flag's breakneck production schedule probably didn't allow for a lot of narrative reflection, but to me, the thematic ramifications of Izzy's death are dire. You've killed, by your own admission, the spiritual essence of the crew. Hell, I'll go there. You killed the magic of friendship personified. You mutilated its corpse for a grave marker and swapped the traditional sea burial for a shallow grave, for a funeral on a sunny day with no eulogy beyond a middle finger and, well, that's it then. He was a good one. Intense. Very intense. He was a fucking nightmare. What a guy. It's bizarre to watch a show that built itself on radical vulnerability and unflinching camp put out a funeral scene with less emotional oomph than your typical Marvel joint. I often call myself a death of the author type gal. If you try to turn me off from a ship because, well, the creator didn't mean for their relationship to be seen as romantic, I'll ship those characters harder, out of spite. People tell me it's not that deep. Like that's not the fun part. I'm happy to draw constellations out of Cheerios. I enjoy the challenge of finding meaning in the ridiculous and the mundane. Intentionality doesn't factor into that game. And yet, if I don't find out right this second if Tom Rogers meant to make these meerkats Jewish, I'm gonna eat a whole side of them. For whatever reason, Izzy's death destroyed my ability to care about Our Flag Means Death as a sandbox. The show's use of light and shadow, the contrast of Georgian portraits with Lucius's art, with Mary's art, the symbolism of oranges and water and birds and clocks and noses, the integration of contemporary music, both diegetic and non-diegetic, in an 18th century setting, the constant stream of commentary on racism and classism and sexism and queerphobia. In the wake of Izzy's death, it all felt plastic and cold. It's like if you go out on a date and have a great time, Mel suggested over the phone, only to find out that the guy asked you out as a joke. It was like Izzy's death revealed that, I'd been strung along. If the creators could treat a seagull's death with more dignity than Izzy's, I almost feel embarrassed to have convinced myself any of it meant anything to begin with. Which is, I hasten to add, a silly thing to believe. Because I know the creators meant to put down at least some of what I'm picking up on. And anyway, since when do I, a John Locke shipper, give a single fuck about authorial intent? Still, here I sit, like a jilted lover, nursing a dedicated disinterest towards what I might otherwise call, intentionality irregardless, a fantastical playground of symbolism and social commentary. Any messages about family rang hollow once the crew buried Izzy like a dog.
We'll be holding a burial at sea for Carl.
Oh, so the bird gets a sea burial. Okay. I found it hard to care about the mermaid symbolism when the show stapled a unicorn poster to Izzy's forehead, anointed him the found family figurehead, then shot his guts out with what felt like zero regard for the symbolic ramifications. I respect Jenkins' decision to forego a cliffhanger as a precaution, but I do wish Our Flag had ended with that cannonball. I do wish that precious half hour of screen time had been allocated elsewhere. The finale gave me a sleep paralysis demon, not closure. And to be honest, I miss my soup.
Alright, so this next bit is going to be a commercial for my book, and you have until Layla Bun finishes this dandelion leaf to click away.
Do you like colored pencils? Are you a fan of graphic novels?
What the fuck?
Have you ever performed neurotypicalness for so long you forgot how to take off the mask and became estranged from your own emotions? Do you like rabbits? Well boy, do I have the book for you.
I'm just fucking with you.
In Princess Aster's world, Bunnybirds live in contented isolation, keeping themselves detached from the world in order to practice magic. Nothing is ever wrong and no one is ever angry, even as Aster's people seem to be slowly disappearing. When her father is next to vanish, Aster resolves to find and rescue the missing Bunnybirds, even if it means journeying over the edge of the world itself. Once Upon a Time bookstore calls Bunnybirds the most surprising and charming new middle-grade graphic novel. Come for the captivating cuteness of these winged bunnies, and stay for the emotional depth and wildly rich fantasy world-building. Booklist called Bunnybirds a magnificent, hilarious, and heartwarming adventure, and gave it a starred review. This middle-grade book offers a perfect blend of adventure, humor, and emotional depth. Layla the Rabbit calls Bunnybirds a delicious snack. Now you might be wondering how I create this colored pencil texture. Well, first, I open up a new canvas in Clip Studio Paint. Then I close Clip Studio Paint and draw the comic with colored pencils. I do this because I am a masochist. Each page takes anywhere from 10 to 14 hours to complete. It's been 4 years of blood, sweat, and rockstar energy drinks, y'all. It means so much to finally be able to share this labor of love. Bunnybirds is available wherever books are sold, or you can check the description below for direct links to retailers. You can also request Bunnybirds from your local library. Or don't. I can't control you. Commercial over!
I. Get Sherlocked, idiot. Or...
That's it! I've given up! I've given up on society!
After the R-Flag finale dropped, I saw a lot of posts like, why do I feel queer-baited? I felt the same way, which baffled me, because R-Flag Means Death does not queer-bait. R-Flag runneth over with canonically queer characters. Both main characters are queer. Lucius and Pete and Izzy and Olu and Jim and Archie and Wee John and Jack are, I'd argue, all some flavor of queer. So why the queer-bait alarm bells? Well, as it turns out, a lot of the folks who expressed this queer-bait sentiment survived the Sherlock fandom. Huh. The last leg of R-Flag Means Death approached its overarching recovery narrative kind of like a hitman speedrun. Like all these complex interpersonal dramas were only obstacles to overcome on the road to some happier set piece, rather than, I don't know, the very draw of the show for me. With a full hour shaved off your runtime, every second of screen time counts, and I was sad to see the camera linger on the shopkeeper pirates and Pop.
Am I tripping?
Only to speed through these massive conflicts.
So we're laughing. Blackbeard's back and we're all just back to it.
Hey, bro, that's what happens, you know? They just get away with it and we move on.
Talk it through as a crew? Who's that? R-Flag's finale tells me these conflicts are resolved, but doesn't show as much. And that's a strange mismatch to see from a show that turned me onto the benefits of telling as an art form. For me, the memories of Sherlock as a show are so saturated with queerbait. I bet another unrelated overlap, say a lack of narrative follow-through, was enough to set off my queerbait panic button by association.
I've meant to say always and I never have. Since it's unlikely we'll ever meet again, I might as well say it now. Sherlock is actually a girl's name.
I'm gonna kill you!
But also, I went back through season 1 and tallied up all the times someone used gender-neutral pronouns for Jim. The pronoun they or them appeared 7 times. Enter season 2 and...
0! 0 is nothing, zip, nada.
And at first that made me go, what the fuck? And then I was like, well, yeah, Rab. Since Jim no longer presents a gossip-worthy mystery to the crew, there's less reason for the crew to speak to each other about Jim. I'm sure the lack of pronouns were less a deliberate omission than a byproduct of Jim's reduced screen time. In season 1, In season 1, Jim's disguise, their revenge quest, and their slow burn romance put them under a spotlight, and with most of those plot threads resolved, I guess Jenkins opted to turn the camera elsewhere. Jim still crops up on a regular basis, right? But the decision to sideline such a central figure was always going to change the overall color of the show.
Question. About Jim. Did you feel their absence in the second season? Because technically they were there the whole time, I guess, but I'm in the middle of this bit of the script and I'm like...
Oh yeah, no, Jim died at the end of season 1.
Fishjizgskofax.
Favorite character arrow right emoji none show with left Jim pipeline.
Also, about that polycule? I wanted this to be a thing so fucking bad, you guys. I was so ready for Archie and Olu and Jim and Jang to get together.
As I understand it, there might be a bit of room on the ship.
Oh, would we get our own room? Oh, don't push it.
I mean, we can also share. I mean, we've been doing that.
But then Jenkins tells Polygon, I think that relationship was always seen in the room as a friend relationship that got romantic. They truly care about each other enough to just want to see their friend with someone good. Someone who takes care of them. In my life, those are the best relationships with exes. I do see those among my friends, but I don't see it dramatized a lot. I just see the negative component dramatized. I like it this way. They're friends, and they just want to see each other do well. Okay, so that doesn't sound like a polycule. That sounds like exes who are still friends. But Vico definitely saw them as okay. I don't understand. And then Samba Schutte let something slip in a baking class live stream.
Yeah, those are the few moments. There's so many scenes that were cut out between Jim and Olu as well to help their relationship thrive. There was a scene in episode 6 that was cut out where Archie, Jim, and Oluwande step out of the bedroom in boxers. So you can imagine what was happening there. And I wish I could, yeah, I'm just going to be sharing so many BTS photos and videos.
So you're telling me there was a scene where Archie, Jim, and Olu stepped out of a single bedroom in their underwear, and it was cut? Why? To save 5 seconds of screen time? Add that to the queer censorship vibe, I guess. Meanwhile, the fucking curtain. Or the fucking curtain, as in the curtain you fuck behind. HBO has garnered a queer-friendly reputation, and mega hits like Game of Thrones demonstrate HBO's tolerance, even proclivity, for, let's go with, spice. These factors combined laid the groundwork for a sex scene between Ed and Steed. It wasn't a given, for sure. But the show had already gotten up to some kinky shit, and Doug and Mary share a loud, albeit hidden, sex scene. I'd like to preface this next point with the fact that I am a sex-repulsed ace. Fanfic sex scenes are cool, but TV sex scenes quick me the fuck out. My repulsion for TV sex doesn't make TV sex bad, of course. It does strike me as funny, though, that even someone as sex-repulsed as I am could watch Steed pull the curtain closed on the camera and go, wait, where's the sex scene? It's not like Jenkins had anything to lose at this point. Our flag already bore the TVMA badge of death. Plus, I can't help but feel like, really? This show? As Darcy Tilbrook reports for the Gay Times, what makes our flag unique is its authenticity in depicting real queerness. There are none of the classic queer tropes we are used to, and had to tolerate because for a long time we just had to take what we could get when it came to LGBTQ+ media. Our Flag Means Death does not skirt around or hint at queer love. They truly realize it, accept it, and present it proudly. This famously loud and proud, unapologetic queer show went for a textbook sexy discretion shot. Per TV tropes, 2 characters have been talking. Talking has turned to kissing, and as kissing starts to turn into other things, the camera suddenly decides to look elsewhere. The view pans away as it fades to black or rests upon an intimate but innocuous object like a burning candle, the curtains of an open window, or the door being closed. We're not supposed to care about this new object, it's just the show's way of saying, they're going to have sex now, let's give them some privacy. This shot can be turned into a passage of time montage, e.g. a dissolve shows the candle going from just lit to guttering, or the darkened window now gleams with the rays of the rising sun. When the camera wanders back, we see our couple post-coitus, cuddled up for some pillow talk, or slumbering peacefully beneath their modesty bedsheet. This trope is useful for various reasons. If the Censorship Bureau simply does not allow depictions of sex, this gets the idea across to the audience without showing anything that would offend the moral guardians. I mean, is this show for mature audiences or not? I'm kinda disappointed we didn't get a soft, silly, dumb gay sex scene. Maybe there's no grand conspiracy. Maybe Jenkins didn't want to do a sex scene for no other reason than he didn't want to do a sex scene, and that's cool. Fine. But the vibes, though. Look at this chicken. Okay, thanks. Hey, does this matelotage feel oddly hetero? Yeah, to me, but what does feel hetero even mean? Maybe I feel disconnected from this romance because I don't expect it to last more than like the first major road trip. Or maybe my own weird relationship with marriage makes this scene feel less relatable to me as a queer person. Why does Izzy's death feel like a case of bury your gays when there are like 70 other very alive gay people 5 feet away from his corpse? Well, maybe because by the time of his untimely demise, I'd become the closest to Izzy out of anyone on the crew. His death was always gonna suck, even before the show used his mobility device as a grave marker. Did our flag means death queerbait? You know, odd vibes aside? No. But for those of you who came away from the season with that familiar Sherlockian pit in your stomach, I see you. You're not alone. It's the skipped emotional beats for me. The climaxes with no concrete follow-through. That special kind of cognitive dissonance when a story tells you one thing and shows you another one too many times. This closeted aura. I better wrap up this video before I puncture something. When a show drops off, I've learned to anticipate a death spiral. Even before the announcement, I didn't expect Jenkins to be able to pull out of this dive. I might have checked out season 3 out of morbid curiosity. Despite my lack of faith, I wish Jenkins had been allowed to finish his story. I know a lot of people still adore Our Flag Means Death. Unfortunately for them, if HBO doesn't scrub a beloved series from the face of the earth every 4 days, Casey Bloys goes into anaphylactic shock. Not that the other networks are any better. You can check the description down below for my book and a random playlist and the exact date and time of your death. Find me on Twitter or Tumblr, or contribute to my autistic agenda via Patreon, and help more of my fever dreams come true. My patrons are the reason these videos are sponsorship free, so everybody say thank you for their wonderful service. For $1 per video, you can get your name on these here credits. Pledge a bit more and whoa, you get sneak peeks, early access, strange vlogs like this one. I can finally shower. Extra hugs to my top patrons, Achyutha Ananda, Acute Latios, Amy Holschwadner, Benji M, Broomhilda, Canby Coy, Dane, Ginny Brown, Glowy, Griffin Nerf, Jayette, Mika13, Miranda, Anna Doodles, Rabout, Sohastalitha, and Devira Wild. I'll be back with another video as soon as the stars align. Until then, see ya, sinners.